Escaping near slavery on Spanish ships, Filipinos began arriving in Barataria-Terrebonne as early as 1765.
They have the subtropical climate, they have the fish, they have the shrimp, practically everything that they need to exist are available in Louisiana. One thing that they were very familiar with the typhoon, just like the hurricane that they have here. Just like the villages in the Philippines, they raised their houses like from 10 to 12 feet above the water.
Across the world in Croatia lived another seafaring people.
When Napoleon came, it decimated the fleet and created a surplus of sailors, which in turn created a high unemployment. So when these people came to New Orleans, they had the fishing skills and the boat handling skills.
They were from down on the coast, the Croatian coast. They were all fishermen. So they came into New Orleans and all, and they come down here to fish. I think the Yugoslavs invented the oyster business here.
But if oysters were familiar, much was different. The Croatians had left high mountains and deep bays for this. So they adopted Filipino house styles.
The camps were on the stilts with the wharf in front, an oyster lugger or two or three, several skiffs. And to build a beach, they merely threw the dead oyster shells there and made their own beaches.
You could sail out to the reef, park on top of the reef, rake the oysters with the rakes. They'd sell them off the boats right in at the docks in New Orleans. That's why you got only oysters in winter months till today, because it used to take them 3 or 4 days to get to the market. And if it was warm, they'd die too. So you had cold weather, you could keep them for a week.
Cajuns and others copied Croatians, but winter oystering did not provide a year-round livelihood. But in summer, shrimp swarmed these bays.
This has become an outstanding, well-known area for the best dried shrimp in the world, that people hanker for it throughout the coastal areas of China. This was quite a staple of their diet, the dried shrimp and the dried fish.
We shipped a lot. In those days, we were broke, and China had money, and we were handling a Chinese product. So it just, developed and brought some money back into the territory, and it put a lot of people to work.
In the Barataria-Terrebonne estuary, exporting shrimp, fish, and even live terrapins to China became big business.
This is a shrimp drying platform. This one's on Fifi Island behind Grand Isle. It's one of about 6 in Barataria Bay and about 15 of them they had along the coast. They were established in the 1870s by the Chinese immigrants, Filipinos, and also a lot of French people worked out here.
You jump in the water, holding one end of the seine, your back would be covered with mosquitoes. You duck your head on and knock the mosquitoes off. The captain would direct the boat. He would circle the area. He'd go downwind maybe and circle back up here and come up this way and try to make it meet, trying to make the ends meet. But you had to pull, and it was hard work pulling. Sometimes you'd catch a tarpon or sharks. They would beat the side of the seine, going back and forth, then everybody would holler, be careful, you get hit by the tail.
They'd take the shrimp and boil them, then they would spread them out on these large cypress platforms to dry in the sun, and they'd turn them with wooden rakes, and after they dried for a day or two, then they would put canvas on their shoes, and they would do a process they call dancing the shrimp, which is walking on the shrimp to separate the hulls from the dried shrimp themselves.
In the corner of their platform, there will be a Filipino who would be strumming their guitar and just playing music, and the whole family, the whole group would dance the shrimp.
Late 19th century Barataria Bay embodied the American melting pot, A gumbo of ethnic groups learned from each other to make sustainable use of wetlands resources. They lived on stilt villages, a Filipino legacy, built of cypress and palmetto, Native American building materials. They sailed the bays in luggers, a boat type from France. In summer, they dried shrimp by ancient Chinese techniques, and in winter, harvested oysters cultivated by Croatian methods.
They did not have mechanization, they did not have ice, so they lived as close to the resource site as they could. And therefore, throughout the basin, there were hundreds of these small communities, all surviving around the renewable resource base.
You produce a fairly unique people, a very insular people, a people who were 54 miles as the crow flies, if you want to get there from New Orleans, by boat, or 54,000 if you want to communicate with them, which is one reporter said in 1896. So I think it still might be an apt quote.
Wetland resources drew immigrants from Ireland, Germany, Spain, Italy, as well as Cajuns and Creoles from the interior frontlands.